Recording in progress, right?
Got it.
You're ready.
I had a throat there. Oh, got hurt. I need you to put your mug down because I can't concentrate. A mug in his hand, not in the mug. That is his face, by the way. Ladies and gents, welcome back to 2PT's One Podcast. We are on episode 35, and we are, how do I say it? We're talking about fat. We're talking about photo shoots and getting lean. So obviously, we're going to discuss the certain degrees of lean. There's everyday life lean, there's holiday lean, and then there's stage and photo shoot lean. I went through photo shoot lean August last year, and obviously,
yeah, was it August? What the hell?
Yeah, start of August, 9th of August, and then subsequently ate the entire house. So now I'm back to a realistic point. But just talking through everything that I it sounds really philosophical saying discovered about myself, but then it's also a lot of the stuff that I didn't run the full block through me. I did 15 weeks and I did 13 of them. The last two, I passed the reins over to someone else. And there's a lot that a lot of people don't consider in terms of if you're actually going to get help, what kind of processes you put in, how much time it's going to take to actually do all this, which is going to be a big topic of today. But I think we should actually address level of leanness and sort of comparative scales, because I mean, before the podcast started, we said strongman size, like strongman lean, even
power belly.
So power belly, average Joe. So obviously, a lot of what you will do will dictate by how much you actually move as well. Because I think a lot of people, they expect to get like really lean. But if you're sitting down for, I'm not even going to say 8 hours on a 9 to 5, because you've got commuting time, you've got the time when you get home and you're absolutely exhausted from work. You're then sitting down for probably another 2-3 hours whilst you chill out, and then you're going to go to bed.
Yeah, so if you spend the majority of the time you're sitting down, then you're not going to get that much movement in. I've completely forgot what I was going to say already. This is a great start for me.
Oh, Myles' first words.
Banging form here, Myles Harrison. Well done, mate.
But no, I think.
But yeah, but when we're talking about, let's say, weight loss and stuff like that, a lot of it will be mostly focused on the nutritional side of things. That's where your biggest that's your biggest margin of where things can improve on and stuff like that. It's been shown in so many studies that if you do want to focus on weight loss, then it's what's been done in the kitchen and the habits evolving around that rather than the actual movement and the exercise points, because don't people realize that how low the calories you actually burn through exercise? It's so low, and stuff like that. But yeah, we'll carry on with the different types of body fat.
So I think we said average Joe, and then you've got your holiday lean. So people like they will come to a coach 4 weeks before and be like, I want to look in the best shape of my life, and I'm like,
yeah, this is the ideal lean. This whole lean comes in like different ways. So like you'll have you're lean. You look like someone you're generally fit, obviously works out, stuff like you. You'll partially look athletic. You might even look a bit more on the leaner side. You might get a little bit of a vascularity and all that kind of fun stuff and all that. But the reason why it's called a holiday lean is because most people don't sustain it and they go back to their old habits once the holiday's over. So
everywhere past holiday lean is not sustainable as a lifestyle unless you want to be a hermit crab. Like even I think the one stage past the holiday lean would be photo shoot and stage lean. And for everyone that has been at that point, it is nowhere near sustainable. Holiday, you don't go on holiday and be like, yeah, I'm going to maintain this for 2 weeks. As soon as you see that buffet, you're like, oh no, you have some carbs, and like you're walking around pumped up to hell because it's actually doing some good for the first couple of days. but then it gets a bit more of a habit, and then the weight starts coming back on. So
all the exclusive breakfasts. I love that.
that's the thing. Like people will spend all this time trying to get lean, and unless there is an object at the end, like the next stage would like getting the photos.
Well, that's it. That's the main reason why mostly people do it, is obviously to look the best, because they know that photos are going to be hard coming. They're more likely going to show a little bit extra skin and all that malarkey and stuff like that. Like, imagine if people put that much effort all year round. Like, that would be, you would see some really good progress, but obviously things get away, work, blah, blah, all that kind of stuff. So it can't be fully sustainable, but like we always preach to everyone and stuff like that, like your body fat percentage, and people can't see me through audio, I'm doing the whole finger thing. The bunny ears thing, thank you very much. It is going to fluctuate. For example, Christmas has just passed. People are a lot at the moment going to have a lot of holiday weight. And I say to all the people, if you don't put weight on through Christmas, you've obviously not enjoyed yourself. Like, you've got to generally, like, obviously it's different from people to people. I get that for sure and stuff like that. But people are going to put on weight through that winter period, because a lot of the things that we do in the festive period is eat. And then usually tends when summer comes out and people start, again, shorts are out, t-shirts are out and stuff like that. People start looking to obviously clean up the diets, get themselves moving a little bit more and stuff like that. Spend vigorous hours on a cross trainer. Don't know why. To get themselves into a good state. But like anything where the intensity massively increases, there's no consistency in it. So
the value as well. Like, other than those 15 weeks, that was at that point that the only thing valuable to me was looking really good for that photo shoot. I'm paying for a photo shoot. It's not cheap, so I might as well give it my absolute all for that period. There's no point cycling through, like you will with a lot of people. They'll go through cycles of being and having a diet, looking amazing, feeling really good about themselves, dropping off, going back, then doing the same cycle again, and just zigzagging between the two. And like, I'm not here to say like you need to stay lean all year round. I mean, that's my value. Like, my focus isn't staying that lean all the time. I don't want to do it.
Particularly healthy, is it? Like,
yeah. Oh no, no.
I've seen a lot of people go reverse 180. Like, I've seen 1 minute they're in fantastic shape, photo shoot ready. Next thing I notice, they've put on 2 or 3 stone. It isn't sustainable, and the fact that they get that deep into it, there's a massive rebound that comes with it. And you've got to sacrifice a lot of things for it. And in my personal opinion, I hope I'm not offending you, Mike, I don't see any point in it. Obviously, yes, there's an achievement that comes with it. And I know I'm going to upset a lot of people who do the bodybuilding industry, obviously, aka even my granddad when he was doing it. Like, getting to that certain level of leanness to show off the body, show off obviously all the hard work, and there's nothing wrong with that. If you enjoy that, brilliant. But for me, for someone who plays a lot of sport, whoever isn't based off how lean I am, is more based on what I do on the pitch and stuff like that, or what I do on a daily basis, I don't think there's any values in that. And I don't think that just also relates to athletes or anything like that. I think that relates to a lot of Gen Pop people as well. Because I think once you get down to that level of lean, sorry, Mike, I know you're cutting in. I think it's an excuse to say to yourself, well, you know what? I used to be that lean and stuff like that. And I remember doing this, I remember doing that. And you create a lot of bad habits to get near to that, when that was the thing that got you back into this place in the first half.
Yeah. Because it's like I said, but it's the value of the person. And obviously it's that personal opinion. Like, I'm not going to come in and do a photo shoot every single year. It's not my value. For me, the biggest thing was getting the photos as social proof, and be like, to a certain extent, if I can do it, I can do it for you at coaching level. But then at a personal level, it was really good in the fact that it actually helps me understand that because it's not just going and doing cardio, going and doing training and eating certain foods. It goes well beyond that point, especially when you're really lean and you debate all your life choices when you're there eating freaking the smallest portion of food. But you actually learn a lot about your own potential in terms of how far you can go with certain things. And I use this as a comparison with someone else. And it's like, if I can go through something as what I perceived as difficult as that at the time, and that's the most difficult thing I've been through, looking at other aspects, it's not going to be that hard, because I'm like, well, I've done that mentally. I've proved that I've got mental toughness and I've got the ability to get into a good routine, which I can then keep after. Because it's like, I used to find the time to do 40, no, not even 45. At one point, I was doing like just under an hour's cardio, along with training, along with trying to work with clients, along with going off my other job. And that taught me that it's like, no, it's not you're not lazy. You've just got really poor time management. This is going slightly off topic, but then it helps me understand that, wait, no. It sounds like Molly May, because she's just been slated.
You know what? Literally, I was just about to say the exact same thing. Obviously, at the moment now, at the time of recording this, Molly May's of Love Island and all that has been scrutinized because she's pretty much said that everyone's got the same 24 hours. And the way she said it, only people who, like you said, maybe have poor time management might have got offended. Like, yes, time isn't relevant. We've all got different times. We've all got different responsibilities. I completely understand that. But she is right in the way of saying, if it's something that you really want, you will sacrifice a lot of things to get to that point. And obviously, photoshoot falls into that brackets and stuff like that, because you're going to have to sacrifice more than just eating, time obviously dedicated to training, dedicated for cardio and stuff like that. But you're going to obviously, there's aspects of health, especially if you're female. There's aspects of relationships, because even like social events, because even, for example, like you're getting to that point where like food, like you can't go out, like you can't even risk even the temptation of going out. And if you've got mates who are like on a Friday night, like to go to a pub or something like that after a football game or something, you say no. So you might lose some friendships out of it, especially if they're not in line with your values, because not everyone could be dedicated enough to obviously, again, dedicate themselves for such a long period of time. So there's a lot of factors that play into it. And I have respect for people who do it, but it's just not for me in that kind of sense.
There's a certain degree of, I listened to a lot, I think I went for the typical listen to a lot of motivational stuff when I was just feeling absolutely down in the dumps, because it is mentally tough, it's physically tough. Like sleeping is a nightmare. Structurally, like you look lean, you can see all your muscles, but your joints hurt like a mother, especially when you're relatively strong already, because you've got to deal with the mental aspect of getting weaker because you're weighing less and you've got less energy, and your joints just feel like everything just goes. And I'm like, there was probably about 6 times when I actually just turned to myself and I was like, is it actually worth it? And you've just got to listen and look at the situation and be like, right, if I can get through this process, if I can tick these boxes, because at the end of it, that's all it was for me. I was like, right, what have I got to do today? At what order can I do that? And how can I work the best to get that order done? It was as simple as that. And if it meant getting up at 5:30 to go and do cardio at 6 a.m., so be it. I would still be able to do all the cardio and do everything else and then cook all my meals, because I went through like 2 phases. I went through the phase of being so down on food that like I felt like I was just eating crumbs, whilst still doing, I think the highest step count I was doing some days, because I was still doing my other job as well, was probably 25k. So like you get to the end of your day and you're like
exhausted.
Yeah.
And you feel like you've got to mentally prepare yourself for the next day of that. Literally, when you just saying crumbs, then I just thought about me when the guy's just like, I had a fish cake.
And fish and rice cake.
I have a fish, and another fish, and I have a rice cake. And then another one. Yeah, there's a lot of things you got to sacrifice, and it's not It's not short. It's not pretty. It's you're in it for the long run. It's like a full on marathon. Um, but saying that, Mike, obviously, it's a long path. A lot of times where you can easily just go, you know what, fuck this. I'm gonna have some custard creams. Like when you got to that bit where the day came and the photo shoot ready and stuff like that, the camera's in your face, and you've got to pose for the camera and stuff like that. Was there a moment where you were just like, okay, I'm proud of myself for doing this. I'm happy with myself. Or was there a point where you kind of go, you know what, this wasn't all the things I was expecting?
It was weird because the mentality shifted, because I carb loaded a couple of days before, so basically just to fill muscle glycogen up. So had very, very low carb days. I think the lowest I got down to was probably 40 grams of carbs.
Mate,
Yeah.
that's pretty much a bagel and a half.
Yeah, so like, I mean, we're talking like I was fat loading at this point, so it might not even be 40, it might be less. It was probably trace from the food that I was actually having at the time. So carb level within the body, so glycogen stores within the body were very, very low. Fat was obviously going up, so there's a certain degree, because I think whenever you drop below about 150 grams of carbs, that's when like mental clarity starts to drop off. So with my clients, I never really try and aim below 150 unless there's a specific target. And then I got to, oh God, I think it was the Friday before, because I had the shoot on the Monday. And I was cooking all this food for these times. And it was like, I think one day I had 7 or 8 meals on the Sunday. And I was like, wait a minute, like, because Zach did the prep. And I remember, I think I've still got the photo, because I messaged him. I was like, I trust you to absolute bits, but I'm really not sure what's going on here, because I like held up this like a mixing bowl of potato and it was full. I was like, are you sure? I was like, I had to eat that twice that day. And I was like so satisfied, but I think I had a bit of, because my body was so not used to having carbs, my mental like capacity just went like out the window completely.
It's almost like if like thermodynamics, if you've been in cold water, like ice cold water this whole time, and you get yourself into something warm, that warmth could expose itself a hell of a lot more, and vice versa. Yeah, no, exactly.
But my body for food was just a furnace at that point.
Yeah.
And then came to the Monday, and like I was checking in with Zach, I think after every meal. So for me, I didn't see the difference. And it's not until you see certain capacities during the day. And I woke up in the morning, I was like, holy, got to the shoot. My focus wasn't on like food or anything like that. I was just nervous at that point, because obviously I'm standing tanned, half naked in a gym that I typically PT and like train out of. And so there's people that I know, and I'm like, the transition completely shifted to just nerves at that point. I mean, I'll hold my hand up. Like I had, Zach was there, Andy was there, so it was a lot of people I already knew. But then Carl Morris, who was a photographer. If you're in the Staffordshire area, like I'm not even trying to plug in here, but if you are in the area and you're looking at this kind of stuff, go to Carl. Honestly, like I've never transitioned from being so nervous to so like not confident, just at ease so quickly.
Technically, what Mike is saying is this unsponsored video is now sponsored by Carl's Photographs.
And that 100 will be wired to my bank account later.
He's like, you're welcome.
But no, it's like the transition and the relief. I think once the shoot was done, it was about halfway when I felt comfortable. Then that was when the relief started kicking in. And then as soon as the shoot finished, I was like, yeah. No, I think we went to TGI Friday straight away.
So mate, what a banging meal to go straight after too. But how did you, for example, like the days and the weeks afterwards and stuff like that? Like, how did that feel getting back to a somewhat of normality? And was there a normality to go back to? Because obviously, once you experience something like this, it's almost like breaking up with like your first love and stuff like that. It's never truly the same, is it?
Because I didn't fully, I like part and part reversed. So a reverse diet is basically where you would just trickle calories back up just to get to like the baseline of typically what you would be. So I lost 12 kilograms between the start and the end of the shoot.
Damn.
I think I went even. I technically think I went a little bit low, but then because of the carbs, I shot up a little bit more. But the transition for me to get back, because my focus was not to stay there. I said this to Zach, we both agreed, like my focus away from the shoot was always strength, which it is now. So it was never a factor of like, I want to reverse and stay looking good for as long as I can. I didn't have any holidays. I didn't give a shit. Like, I think we went out for food just after it, actually. And I was like, I'll eat whatever I want. And then I think I transitioned back up 10 kilograms in the first few weeks, which I was like, I wasn't forced at all. But it just, the lessons that the whole process taught me, because there's also stuff that I didn't know, because I wasn't going to question that. I wasn't going to question the entire process on what I was getting told to do. But in the same respect, I'd like to know, just because then I know as a coach. And it wasn't until the other day that I actually learned certain stuff like fat loading, because thermic effect of food is lowest with fat and highest with protein, which I generally just fit thermic effect of food as a whole. I didn't actually know it had like comparative levels between fat and carbs.
Yeah, it's like it's so people who don't know what thermal effective food is, think of it as like your body's like a campfire, and in order to light that campfire, you've got to give a little bit of energy, so life a matchstick to get this light going. So whenever we consume food, we don't consume the whole nutrition aspects of it. So Mike is right. The fat is lowest. It's like something like 3 to 5% of actually. Huh? It's really that low, mate.
To 3, yeah.
Yeah, it's like 3 to 5%. Obviously, it's burned through consumption. Carbohydrates is like 10 to 15, and protein's high. It's like 20 to 30%. So that's why people say when you're looking to, let's say, maximize weight loss or anything like that, they tend to stick with a higher protein diet. One, because it takes longer. It takes a while to digest, therefore it fills you up for more long. And also as well has a higher effective food.
Yeah. So I learned a lot about that. I learned a lot about myself, and also learned a lot about the process of training, because apart from like the last 2 sessions, because the last 2 sessions leading up to it basically just pump sessions, I effectively just ran my own training, and typically the training didn't change that much from what I was doing at the time. It more was just adapted in terms of, I know I'm not going to be hitting big numbers. I'm not pressing for PBs. I'm going in to do the work, to burn the calories alongside what I typically do. I'm not like, you need to look at the situation and have situational awareness of what's
realistic expectations.
Yeah. Like, if you can't lose 10 kilograms and think you've got more strength than when you were heavier. Like, your power to weight ratio will only work to a certain capacity, especially when you're dropping a shit ton of weight. Yeah. I think a lot of people don't look at it like that.
That leads to a very interesting point, because obviously, like, let's say, for example, like a lot of people who do sports, I know this is a completely different aspects and stuff like that, tend to look to get lower body fat percentages and stuff like that. And yes, there are a certain bracket where that power to weight ratio does become a positive aspect. But getting that level of leanness, it's before I say this is very subjective. Like, some people will naturally be generally leaner and they'll be fine with it. Some people will have to hold a bit more body fat. It's suggested to people. But the idea of it is that if you are getting to that certain level of leanness, a lot of things are going to have to be sacrificed to get there. One, obviously, is calorie intake. So therefore, the the nutrient stuff that you would usually have won't be there. You won't have that general fuel to enable to enhance you in your sports. Because obviously, if you're playing a lot of team sports, let's say football, rugby, all that type of stuff, you're going to generally need a lot of carbohydrates to fuel you, because they do a mix of obviously energy systems, which obviously is very demanding. Yeah, fair dues. It's very aesthetics and stuff like that. But most of the reason why athletes are generally quite lean anyway is not because they focus so much on that aspect of it. It's because they elicit all the healthy habits that go with it. One, they're very cardio-active. 2, they usually weight train. 2, they generally eat very well, and they sleep very well as well. They probably have a lot of management regarding that as well. So when a lot of people will come in and say like, look, I want to look this certain way and stuff like that. They want to look like an ex athlete or ex this and ex that. Like they, what people don't realize is that actually that they don't focus on that point. Like for example, myself, like I don't focus on becoming leaner. I focus become a better player on the pitch. But that means that the results that I will get from being generally lean won't come because I'm focusing so much on it. It's because I elicit the same habits that luckily get them same results.
Yeah.
Continue.
One thing I actually haven't mentioned is you look more towards, especially when you're so limited with food, you look towards nutritional timing a lot more. Because obviously, if you're doing demanding sessions, personal perception as well there. So it's not the fact that the sessions might be demanding, because what you might consider demanding might have been easy for you previously when you were at a lot higher body weight. Being leaner, you could do the same amount of work, but your time to fatigue can be a lot higher. So the point of having carbs and fat coming at certain points around training, around meal times and everything else can be quite important, especially just because it's that limited. Like I'm not going to go and eat 3/4 of my calories at the start of the day or the end of the day. Like I'd go through certain points of intermittent fasting just for the sake of it. Just because I knew if I was training at certain points, I would need my food more around that point. Just in terms of recovery, in terms of energy for the session itself, and just not leaving myself short. But then that's also getting in terms of one big thing that I'll probably actually say is not try not to plug again. Get a coach, because they will plan it out for you, or plan out your entire day at a food level. Because there's no the stupidest thing you can do is be like, right, I have 1,800 calories for my day, and before lunch, because you know you're going to be hungry, you eat 1,400, and then you leave yourself 400.
So recipe
You're going to set the expectation of how difficult that diet will be by your own ruling of food. And if you're going to cut yourself short, you know you're going to suffer. And if you're going to suffer more, you're more likely to mentally play with yourself and more likely to give more into the situation. So for as meticulous as it is checking over food and calorie counting, counting all the carols that walk down the street, calorie counting, it's a necessary evil, because you can plan out your day, you know when you're going to be eating food, and then you can also prioritize food for certain times. Long term, it's beneficial because you then begin to understand the value of food. Like you can generally look at like a plate of food and be like, well, roughly looking at that from what I've had in the past, this is the amount of food I need. Because the motto I use with my clients is we count calories to not count calories. Because then you get to a certain point where, especially, I'm going to sound really boring, because a lot of my food that I eat is typically the same food.
Yeah, it's to build accountability and consistency with it, and that's like everything that we. I mean, when it comes to calorie counting, one of the clients said to me, "Why am I so strategic with counting my calories?" Because I'm just a fan of data. I like numbers and stuff like that, so I'm very, very prestigious perfectionist really when it comes to counting my calories. And simply, my answer was that you track your finances to make sure you got a roof over your head. Like, do that with your body. Again, it sounds so cliche, but you've only got one of it. Yeah, you might not be here for a long duration of time for the grand scheme of things and stuff like that, but you pretty well want to make sure you're getting the best out of life. And I'm thinking tracking calories, whether how long you do it for and stuff like that, is a great skill to keep yourself accountable and bring awareness to yourself and stuff like that. Because 9 out of 10, the amount of people that come up to me when they start tracking the calories, they go, I didn't realize I had that many calories. I didn't realize that I needed this much to eat. I didn't realize that the food I was eating wasn't that much, or I was overeating by this much. People don't have awareness, and that's because it's not brought to their attention. People are focused on some other stuff.
Let's say the average calories for a person, all intents and purposes, do not run with this number. Please consult any calorie tracker or speak to a coach before you actually implement.
Yeah, this is very suggestive. So before people get pitchforks on us and like, what did you just say to me?
You just said eat 2,000 calories. What the fuck?
Like a fool. Like this is like for me. I honestly like I don't know. I've not. I don't think I've got. I've had a range of people, and I've not found really a habit because everyone has such different lives and stuff like that. Like I had there was one point where I had the exact same calories the same as my client, and he was I'm going to say a bit taller person than me and stuff like that, and he trained as much. So he was like, "Why is that the kit? Is stuff like that?" And it's like because I'm a little bit. I'm obviously a little bit smaller, but all at the same time as well, I do a hell of a lot of activities and stuff like that. So it counts for all that. I play a lot of sports. I play 2 games in a week most times. So you look at 2 different people and you go, well, how the hell have you got the same calorie intake? It's so subjective. Like, I don't actually want to even say the average thing of people, of men having 2,500 calories and women having 2,000. I don't think it's never been, that is never where I've gone like, you know what, you're a woman, 2,000 for a man, 2,500.
Yeah, you need this much vitamin C per day. It's like it's very subjective in terms of like you even look at the back of a package and it's like, well, if you eat this and if you eat 2 jelly babies, that is 4% of your carbs for the day. And it's like, well, no. It doesn't make any sense.
I understand it in theme of it gives people a metric to track from. Because even, for example, let's say like fitness watches and stuff like that, they're not 100% right. They're not. There is a very fine margin with error. But if you're consistent with tracking with that, then you can convert yourself in different ways and you can change that to change aspects. So again, it's even with like MyFitnessPal, it shoots you a number and for some odd reason it adds exercises onto it and all that, even though it asks you what your activity levels are like.
Yeah.
Like that number, your total daily amount should already equate for what you do as an activity within the week or your daily activities. So added exercise on it is counterproductive because you're just eating more expenditure than the ones that you burn now. I'm going on around there. But
yeah, what else did we have on the list?
Yeah, what do we not like about MyFitnessPal? But that's the thing is like, I don't, if I get anyone started on MyFitnessPal, like, it's a great tool. I really do think it's a great tool. I've been doing it since, I've been nearly doing it for 10 years now. I started tracking when I was like 17. Jesus. That's how old I'm getting now. You know?
When I started, I started going when I was in uni, like the gym, but obviously I think everyone will say, oh yeah, I've been going to the gym since I was 18. And then they'll say, but I've been taking it seriously since this point. And it's like, I think the logistics of how serious you take it is when you actually start taking a stand and actually start making big changes.
Yeah.
Like really between.
Go back to the MyFitnessPal and stuff like that. Like whatever number it gives you at the moment, for starters, I always say, don't focus on that at the moment. We can get more serious with stuff like that. Just get used to just tracking and becoming a bit more aware. Get used to how much protein, carbohydrates, fats you get in and stuff like that. Then we can make adjustments on top of that. Because again, you can get this. They've done studies where it's like you get 2 twins, identical twins, and they burn different amount of calories. That's how subjective this thing is. Because everyone has different lifestyles, everyone has different habits, different stuff like that. So don't expect to fall into this small bracket. Everyone's different regards and stuff like that.
Notice when I was actually talking about my prep work getting to the shoot, I never mentioned calories. Like, because that's subjective to me. The cardio would be subjective to me as well, because like I was still moving a lot because of work. I was still very active at the time, but yeah, some people might need more cardio or less cardio than me. It's everything within that process is subjective because you need to account for where you're starting as well. If you're starting at 20 stone and you want to get to 8, you're obviously going to have to
a lot of time.
You need to dictate how much food, how much such a drop is going to actually affect you because that's also a thing in terms of if you go into like a VLCD, which is a very low calorie diet, mentally, how much will that affect you? And also the fact that I don't like using the word diet too often. A diet only really comes in when it's someone that needs to lose a lot of weight for me.
The thing is,
for massive health reasons.
The thing is with the word diet, like I've been talking a lot more about what we tend to focus on. And for me, when you focus on being on a diet, again, bunny fingers here, you'll focus on taking something away. It means that you're gonna have to stuff. I'd rather say like, right, we're focused on a healthy eating lifestyle. And also as well, fun little thing, isn't it funny that the word diet has got the word die in it?
The old Simpsons thing when the tree blows out the way and he's like, die. Oh, diet.
Yeah, exactly. If we can get a clip for that somewhere in this meme, that'll be fantastic.
I'll find the meme and plug it in.
Yeah, just add it onto the YouTube video. But yeah, that's what I mean. It's like, it's getting you to focus on different things. Instead of focus on, right, you've got to sacrifice this, you've got to sacrifice that. Wouldn't it not be better for you to focus on, right, let's hit my protein targets, let's hit my veggies targets, let's hit my fiber targets. Sounds a lot more promising, doesn't it? And positive, rather than thinking, oh, you know what? I can't have that custard cream. Like, how depressing that sounds. And I love my custard cream.
At a gem pop level, like a gem pop level, when you enjoy a drink on the weekend and you're saying, I can't drink any booze, that's a no-go. Ironically, I was going to mention this earlier, and this will make you laugh.
Go ahead.
Because I was basically, once you get to that certain point, you're obviously manipulating water as well, just to get as lean as possible.
Yeah, we don't even talk about hydration yet. Jeez.
Yeah. Oh, fucking hell, that might need to be another podcast because that changed a lot through the process.
It's gonna be a long one, guys.
I had 2 glasses of white wine the night before the shoot. Jesus Christ, it hit me like a ton of bricks. And I was like sitting in my room and like downstairs, I was like full of food, drunk off 2 glasses of wine. I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna do this shoot tomorrow.
Sounds like a cheap night.
Like, this was a Sunday night, and then it was just like, okay, yeah, no, we can deal with this. But I can quickly dabble into water, because basically on the run up to it, I was probably on 6 to 7 liters a day. And whilst you're at home, that is great. When you're at work, it's not so great, because you're spending half your time drinking or going to the toilet.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and then when we got in like up to the couple of days before, that's when we started manipulating water, so dropping water out. So the Sunday, I think a couple of hours before bed, we dropped it off completely, and then in the lead up in the morning, it was just sips. But obviously, health is still a certain degree of consideration. I don't want to dehydrate and just feel like shit, because I was actually quite surprised because of all the food the day before. Obviously, you're going to hold a certain degree of water as well because of the amount of carbs, because a certain degree of water is attached to carbs. So we need to go, you're always going to be in that respect as well. So the water was also already still there, but I was just physically drying out.
Yeah, something like every 3 grams of carbohydrate is a gram of water.
Yeah. So I wasn't worried about that in the respect, and I actually wasn't that dehydrated. It was more just the fact that, ironically, it was the best nights. No, the Saturday night was the best night's sleep I ever had, because that's when I started the pre-carb on the Saturday, and then the Sunday night I was that nervous that I barely slept, because I was like, I didn't know what to expect at all first time. But yeah, like the water concept was, I'm not going to say it was the hardest thing. I think it was more the fact that like you're there and you've just constantly got a bottle of water by your side, and you're ticking it off throughout the day. Like, I had a rule at the time, and I was like, I need to get through I think it was like 2 liters every hour and a half, or 2 hours. So it's obviously you go and refill it, or you're buying more water and everything else, and it's like trying to work, trying to concentrate, And every 20 minutes, you're like, oh, guess what? I need to go pee. And it was just a fucking nightmare in that respect. But
I know, obviously, within
necessary.
I was gonna say, within sports and stuff like, for example, like let's say in boxing, where they go weight categories and stuff like that, they do water manipulation. So they'll get you to drink bucket loads of water like a few days or something like that before, and all of a sudden you just cut. They do that in movies as well and stuff like that. And I will say to anyone that I will not recommend doing that at all and stuff like that. Get the basics first before you I didn't even do that. Do a hell of a lot more first before you get into doing shit like that.
Winnie, if you're listening, hello. he knows. Well, he knows how rough it can be.
If he's listening to this now, he'll be like, "You son of a bitch."
But
right, I say on regards of the duration, we've talked about this right now, Mike. I think we've covered enough where we've gave a general idea out to the public and the people listening to the stuff. The thing that I want to end on is, you've done it once. Would you do it again?
Yes.
Why is that? Because I think you're a fool. You've just said for a good half an hour about this and all that. But yeah, go on then. Why not?
Yeah, fucking why not?
It's like on a Saturday night when you're hungover on Sunday and it's like, oh, I'm never drinking ever again. Saturday night, it's like, hey, do you want to come out for a drink? Yeah, go on then. Why not? Why not? Yeah.
I think it was like 8 weeks out that me and you went out. I was like, oh.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We went out in common. But no, I think because one of the biggest questions I actually got, ironically, in the just after the shoot and just up to the pre of the shoot was, oh, are you going to go compete now? Like stage. And I was like, it's never taken my fancy, if I'm honest. And like a lot of Zach's guys were also going through the same process. So they were doing 4 or 5. I think Liam did 3 and like a Callum did like 4 or 5. And I know how tough it was for one. And to see those guys coming in and like you could tell how little energy they got to go and do these shows back to back. So at a competing level, no. At a photo shoot level, yes, because it's also a degree of seeing how much you progress, because you can always look bigger on a lot of different factors. Getting lean, you can see the true potential of, are you growing? Have you grown? There's a good comparison, because it's always dead weird when you compare like photos, like when you're like not quite fat, not quite lean, but when you're lean, the comparison between them is very big. Because like even with like we were up at Prophecy on Tuesday and they've got a posing room and Liam and Zach compete, and obviously we were looking at certain factors between the two of them, and there's a lot. I think a lot of people rep it because it's more, I now appreciate it a lot more, even though I've never competed. It's more like an art form, for as much as you're going to be like, oh, because the balance of how everything runs, how everything is meticulous, how you set up your training to benefit certain body parts at certain times, because you look at things differently and you look at the symmetry and everything else, and it's like it's quite interesting to see how certain manipulations are made. It's like with me and my carb and fat loading, I now take that information away and apply it into performance. It's obviously not going to work in the same as a visual effect, but I now understand it in terms of energy system way. I've just covered it ironically studying. But it makes more sense to me now because I've actually gone through the process and I just kind of understand the values of the amount of food that would be in potentially to build up to 600 grams of carbs.
And there's the difference when it comes to learning it from a textbook and actually experiencing it. And regarding to anyone who's gone through sports degrees and stuff like that, I mean, I haven't got one. I've got a fine art degree. So the only thing I've got is my qualifications in personal training, strength and conditioning and stuff like that. Like, it's just too different. And that's the same with anyone. I'm saying that you can go visit into life, really. Like, the only thing you can actually truly experience and give opinions on, really, if you've experienced it yourself. And I think as coaches, we've got to experience that before we teach that. Like, if we're giving exercises and workouts to other people, we've got to experience that first. Because if we don't, then how are you supposed to teach that? Honestly, that's in my opinion. I think my opinion about, again, that kind of level and leanness and bodybuilding shows and stuff like that, I've got an appreciation for it. It's in my family. Like my granddad did it and stuff like that. And that's how I got into the whole fitness industry, by doing bodybuilding type of stuff. And I've never done a physique show and stuff like that. I have thought about it, but it's never appealed for me because I've always loved sports. And the more I've got into trying to do better as an athlete, so is took me away from that kind of bodybuilding type of training or mindset or anything like that. But I can appreciate it. I can appreciate someone spending a great deal of time, creating a deal of dedication and stuff like that. Even though I don't agree with a lot of the methods, like you just said, it's an art. And just like in the art world anyway and stuff, like everyone has different styles and stuff like that. So I can stand away from it and go, yep, it's not for me and stuff like that. But if anyone comes up to me saying they want to do it, they want to do that, like, I would say go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead, do it.
One thing I'd probably want to kick off as well before we finish as well. Sorry.
Go ahead, finish it off, man.
So obviously we've done the two I wouldn't say comparisons, but we've looked at photoshoot. I'm going to do it to our side of the microphone here. Photoshoot stage. The journey of bodybuilding is very, as we said, it's not formal in a certain respects, but then it's also subjective to the individual and the people that compare it. Because obviously you're going up against other people with judges being the decision makers on who looks best and who's et cetera, et cetera. I'm not going to go into the logistics because I don't fully understand it. A photo shoot, it is you versus you. There's no one else you're battling against except looking the best that you can look and being the best you can be.
But you could argue with that. That's the same with anything. It is you versus you, because you've got to take responsibility in everything that you do, that you say, and the people that you hang around with and stuff like that. It's just obviously, like I said, it's been shone in a different degree. So, right. Is there anything else you want to speak about, Mike, before I close things off?
No, I don't think so. There's probably other things, but then obviously if anyone's got any questions, just shoot them in to the comments or pop us a DM.
Right, guys. I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode of the 2PT's One podcast. Very interesting topic. I think this has been a nice conversation about it all and stuff like that. But like Mike just said, if you have any questions about anything that we spoke about, by all means, drop us a message in either one of our DMs or emails or something like that. All description below will be in our bios, whether you're watching this on YouTube or listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. If you are listening to this, please rate and subscribe. It will help us massively support us out. And if you've got any topics that you would like to talk us about, buy them more, get them in and stuff like that. But yes, this has been your host, Myles Harrison, with the lovely Mike Ellis, obviously, as well. This is 2PT's One podcast. Enjoy the rest of your day, guys. We'll see you all in the next one. Peace.
My elbow just cracked.
What's that?
Like that, my elbow cracked.